an epic landscape blending all ages, ancient ruins, glowing portals in the sky, guardians of light standing at the horizon, and a lone figure holding a torch high. The cosmic sky swirls with stars and galaxies, symbolizing time, dimensions, and the eternal cycle of rise and fall. The mood is mystical, cinematic, and breathtaking. Have you ever walked among the ruins of an ancient place and felt as though the stones themselves were alive? As though they carried memories, whispering secrets in a language just beyond your understanding? That feeling, the sense that time hides more than it reveals, is at the heart of humanity's oldest mystery. Were there civilizations before our own, vast and powerful, that have now been erased not only from history, but from the very fabric of reality itself? Our textbooks tell a simple story. Humanity began in small tribes, learned to farm, built villages, then empires, then modern cities. But the Earth does not always agree with this story. Across deserts, jungles, mountains, and ocean floors, we find ruins that should not exist. Ruins that are too old, too advanced, or simply too strange to fit neatly into the timeline of human progress. What if these ruins are the faint remains of forgotten human empires? Empires that rose and fell long before Egypt, long before Mesopotamia, perhaps even before the Ice Age ended. Empires that slipped away into silence, leaving only whispers, cracks in the official story. The more we dig into the Earth, the more the story of civilization begins to crack. Take Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, 12,000 years old, thousands of years older than Stonehenge or the Great Pyramids. Carved pillars, arranged in circles, decorated with symbols and animals, raised by people who, according to history, were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers. Or look to the Andes, where stones at Pumapunku have been cut with geometric precision, so sharp that even today's engineers marvel at the technique. Blocks weighing hundreds of tons, moved and placed in patterns that boggle the imagination. Or gaze into the waters near Yonaguni, off the coast of Japan, where vast stair-like structures suggest the outlines of a submerged city. If this truly is a city, it must have been built before the seas rose at the end of the last ice age, at least 10,000 years ago. These are not isolated anomalies. They are scattered all across the world like fragments of a shattered mirror, hinting that humanity's past is far deeper and stranger than we are told. The language of stone does not lie. Stone endures. Long after papyrus has rotted, long after scrolls have burned, stone remembers. When you stand in Baalbek, Lebanon, you will see the largest stones ever quarried by human hands. One block, the stone of the pregnant woman, weighs over 1,000 tons. No modern crane can lift it. Yet there it rests, placed with a precision that challenges our understanding of the ancient world. When you walk among the great pyramids of Giza, their sides aligned perfectly with the cardinal points of Earth, their proportions echoing mathematical constants, you must ask yourself, how did people, with no iron tools and no wheel, achieve this? And why did they build with such perfection, if not to echo something timeless, something eternal? In Peru, walls rise from the earth with stones fitted together like puzzle pieces. No mortar, no gaps. Just stones so tightly interlocked that even today, after earthquakes, they remain standing. Perhaps these are not merely the achievements of clever masons. Perhaps they are the signatures of civilizations whose knowledge has been erased, whose whispers are carried only by stone, myths as memories. And then there are the myths. Every culture, no matter how distant, no matter how isolated, carries stories of worlds before our world. The Greeks told of Atlantis, a mighty island nation that vanished beneath the waves. The Hindus spoke of cycles of ages, where empires of men rose and fell over millions of years. The Hopi of North America tell of previous worlds destroyed by fire and flood. The Sumerians, whose clay tablets are among the oldest writings we have, wrote of gods who walked among men, teaching them the arts of civilization. Modern scholars say these are just myths, but myths are not random. They are the memory of cultures. They are truths, wrapped in symbol, passed down through generations. When 200 different cultures tell stories of a great flood, can we really call it coincidence, or is it memory? Memory of a cataclysm so vast, it reset the clock of human history, washing away empires we no longer remember. The silence between epochs. History, as we know it, is not continuous. There are gaps, long stretches of silence where civilizations seem to vanish, leaving little or nothing behind. The Dark Ages in Europe are just one example, but these voids appear across the world. Why? What if humanity did not simply pause in those times, but was interrupted? What if there were resets, moments when empires collapsed, not only in the physical world, but in ways we cannot fully grasp? Imagine entire civilizations erased not just from memory, but from reality itself, as though they slipped sideways into another dimension. What remains behind are ruins that feel alien, myths that feel like dreams, and the haunting sense that something is missing from our story. A world before the flood. Many researchers believe that before the last ice age ended, before seas rose and swallowed the coasts, there existed a world we barely remember. It was a world of vast coastlines, fertile plains, and thriving peoples. But then came the floods. As glaciers melted, the oceans rose by more than 400 feet. Cities that may have dotted the shorelines were swallowed forever, leaving only faint traces beneath the waves. Is it possible that the ruins near Yonaguni, or the sunken temples off the coast of India, are remnants of this drowned world? If so, then the story of civilization does not begin in Mesopotamia or Egypt. It begins in a time before the flood, a time we have forgotten, but that the earth remembers. The fingerprints of knowledge. Look at the sudden leaps in human knowledge. 12,000 years ago, we were hunter-gatherers. Then, seemingly overnight, we learned to farm. We built villages, temples, and calendars aligned with the stars. Did this knowledge truly appear from nowhere? Or was it inherited, a gift from those who came before? The ancient Sumerians claimed that their gods, the Anunnaki, gave them laws, writing, mathematics, and astronomy. The Egyptians credited the god Thoth with teaching them the sciences. The Mayans spoke of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, who came from across the sea to give wisdom. Again and again, we hear the same story. Knowledge was handed down, not invented. Could it be that what we call gods were actually survivors of a forgotten age? Men and women of a lost empire carrying fragments of knowledge through the ruins, seeding the next cycle of civilization? Echoes in the blood. Perhaps the whispers of these empires are not only in stone or myth, perhaps they are in us. Our dreams of lost worlds, our fascination with ruins, our stories of golden ages, they may be the echoes of memory written into our very blood. Have you ever felt déjà vu in a place you've never been? A temple, a ruin, even a photograph. Yet something in you stirs, as though you are returning rather than discovering. What if those feelings are not illusions, but fragments? Fragments of memory passed down through generations, across the collapse of ages, carried quietly in our DNA. We are haunted by echoes because we are descendants of forgotten worlds. Worlds we have lost, but that have not lost us. The guardians of memory. Throughout history, there have always been those who claim to guard ancient knowledge. Shamans, priests, mystics, secret brotherhoods. They speak of truths that the rest of the world has forgotten, truths about who we are and who came before us. In Egypt, the priests of Heliopolis preserved stories older than the pharaohs themselves. In India, the Vedic texts describe ages stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, each with its own great empires. In Mesoamerica, the Maya carried knowledge of cycles so vast they measured not centuries, but entire worlds. It is easy to dismiss these as exaggerations. But what if they are not? What if these guardians are simply echoing memories that reach back into forgotten dimensions of our past? When time resets, imagine time as a wheel, not a line. Civilizations rise, reach, greatness and fall, not once, but again and again in endless cycles. Each time a little is preserved, a myth here, a symbol there, a ruin buried beneath the earth. But the deeper truth, most of it is erased. Every great flood, every cosmic event, every unexplained collapse is like the turning of the wheel, grinding down what was and starting anew. We live in one of those cycles now. We think we are the first, the greatest, the most advanced. But what if we are only the latest? What if, beneath our cities and our pride, lie the bones of empires that once believed the same thing? The strange precision of the ancients. Look closely at the ruins. They are not crude. They are not primitive. They are, in many ways, more precise than what we build today. At Tiwanaku in Bolivia, stones are cut into perfect interlocking shapes, some with drill holes that suggest machine tools. At Giza, the Great Pyramid is aligned to true north within a fraction of a degree. At Angkor Wat in Cambodia, temples are aligned with solstices and equinoxes, tracking the heavens with uncanny accuracy. If these were truly the works of primitive people, how do we explain such perfection? Why would early farmers, struggling to survive, invest so much effort into aligning stone with stars? The answer may be simple. They were not the first. They were inheriting, preserving, or echoing something far older. The fear of forgetting. There is one more whisper we must hear. The fear of forgetting itself. Ancient texts often speak of knowledge being hidden away for the future, as though their authors knew collapse was inevitable. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Maya codices, all preserved against destruction, though most were lost. Why? Because they feared what we live through now, that humanity forgets, that entire empires can vanish, leaving nothing but rumors and broken stone, and yet, perhaps they also hoped that one day, when the wheel of time turned again, someone would listen to the whispers and remember. Echoes that refuse to die, so here we are, in the present, surrounded by technology, blinded by progress, convinced that we stand at the pinnacle of human achievement. And yet, the whispers remain. They echo in the ruins that defy explanation. They echo in the myths that refuse to fade. They echo in our dreams, in the strange sense of déjà vu, in the feeling that we have lived this story before. Perhaps we have. Perhaps countless civilizations have risen and fallen, not just on this earth, but across dimensions, across timelines, each leaving faint traces for the next to discover. Perhaps we are not the first, and we will not be the last. What matters is that we listen, that we honor the whispers of stone and myth, that we remember that history is not a straight line, but a song sung in cycles, where verses repeat across ages, and if we dare to listen closely enough, perhaps we will hear not only the echoes of forgotten empires, but also the warning they left behind. For whispers are not just memories. Sometimes whispers are calls, opening hook. What if the civilizations we've forgotten did not simply vanish? What if they slipped sideways? Not into the oceans, not into the sands of time, but into other dimensions, worlds parallel to ours, just a breath away. We like to think of reality as fixed, solid, unchanging. But physics tells us otherwise. Quantum theory whispers that multiple realities can exist at once. String theory suggests entire universes layered like pages in an infinite book. And ancient mystics, long before science, spoke of veils, of hidden realms, of worlds that touch but never fully merge. Could it be that the empires we cannot find in our ruins still exist, not in our history, but in another dimension? And could the myths and memories we carry be the echoes of their voices reaching across the veil, the thinness of reality? There are places in this world where reality feels thin. Sacred sites, ancient temples, mountains that draw storms, caves where shamans speak with spirits. These places exist across every culture, described with different names but the same idea. There are gateways. The Irish called them thin places, where the world of mortals and the world of spirits touched. The Native Americans spoke of portals in the desert guarded by sacred guardians. In Tibet, monks believed that deep in the Himalayas lay Shambhala, a hidden realm, invisible to ordinary eyes. What if these thin places are not just spiritual metaphors, but actual fractures where dimensions overlap? And what if forgotten civilizations learned how to pass through them, leaving our world behind, stepping into another layer of reality? Echoes in Science Modern Physics has begun to echo these ancient ideas. The multiverse theory suggests there may be countless universes beyond our own, each with its own laws of physics, its own versions of history. The many worlds. Interpretation of quantum mechanics proposes that every choice creates a split, birthing, parallel realities. To most scientists, these are abstractions, ideas on paper, far from proof. But what if the ancients did not just theorize? What if they experienced? What if civilizations older than ours learned to cross the veil using knowledge we no longer understand? Rituals, vibrations, technologies that blurred the line between matter and spirit? Could their disappearance from our history not be a collapse, but a migration? Not extinction, but ascension. Legends of vanished worlds. Many myths describe not just lost lands, but lands that were taken away. Atlantis was not only drowned, some versions say it sank beneath the waves like a shadow. The Maya spoke of cities of the gods that disappeared into the sky. The Dogon people of Africa tell of beings from Sirius who visited, then retreated to their hidden world. And in Celtic legend, the Tuatha De Danann, a race of shining beings, lived alongside humans until they withdrew into the mists. These stories do not sound like simple floods or wars. They sound like shifts, entire peoples, stepping into another realm. The technology of transition, if ancient civilizations truly crossed into other dimensions, how did they do it? To us, the idea seems impossible. But perhaps the impossible is only the forgotten. Consider sound. From Tibetan singing bowls to Mayan temples designed to echo like the call of a quetzal bird, sound has always been sacred. Modern science now shows that vibration shapes matter. Cymatics, the study of sound patterns, reveals that tones can arrange particles into geometric forms. Could the ancients have used sound not just for ritual, but as a key, a frequency, that opened doorways between dimensions? Consider energy. From the pyramids of Egypt to the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, so many ancient structures were built on geomagnetic hotspots, aligned with stars and solstices. Were they simply temples? Or were they machines? Machines that tapped into Earth's natural energies, bridging our reality and the next. And consider mind itself. Shamans, through trance and plant medicines, described traveling to other realms. Mystics spoke of astral journeys, visions beyond the veil. If the mind is not bound by the body, perhaps consciousness itself is the traveler, and civilization, at its height, learned how to travel not only in space, but in dimensions. The I, shifting of ages. Every culture speaks of ages: golden, silver, bronze, iron. Times when the world was closer to the divine, followed by times of darkness when the veil grew thick and humanity forgot. What if these ages are not just symbolic, but literal? During golden ages, perhaps dimensions overlap, and humans live alongside other realms, sharing knowledge with beings beyond our world. But as the cycle turns, the veil thickens. Civilizations fade, memories become myths, and we are left here, in the shadows of what once was, reaching for something we can no longer touch. This would explain why so many myths speak of a fall, not only moral but dimensional. A fall from connection, a fall from sight, a fall into forgetting. Signs of the veil today, and yet, sometimes, the veil stirs. People still report strange experiences, shadows that move where there should be none, lights in the sky that flicker in and out of existence, ancient ruins where travelers feel transported, as though time slows or quickens. Modern physics even hints at such possibilities. Scientists have recorded particles that appear, vanish, then reappear, as though they slipped into another reality and returned. Could the same happen to entire civilizations? Could the ruins we see today be only the faintest shadow, while the true empire still thrives just beyond the veil? The lure of the unknown. Perhaps this is why we are so fascinated with the idea of lost civilizations. Atlantis, Lemuria, Shambhala, they call to us not because they are merely ancient, but because they feel alive. We do not mourn them as dead. We search for them as though they are waiting, hidden, somewhere across the veil, listening. The bridges of the ancients imagine standing before a vast stone gateway carved into a mountain. Its surface is smooth, its doorway sealed, a passage that leads nowhere. This is the Puerta de Hayu Marca in Peru, often called the Gate of the Gods. Local legend says that priests once placed a golden disc into its center, and the stone opened as a portal, leading to another world. Across the globe, similar gates exist. At Tiahuanaco, doorways carved into walls stand as though waiting to be opened. In Egypt, temples align with shafts that point to the stars, as if they were channels between earth and sky. In India, the caves of Ellora and Ajanta are filled with carvings of beings traveling between realms. Are these simply artistic flourishes, or are they instructions, blueprints left by civilizations that mastered the crossing? Dreams as doorways, perhaps the most overlooked gateway of all, is the mind. Every night we slip into dreams, worlds as vivid as this one, yet intangible when we wake. Modern neuroscience calls them hallucinations of the brain, but ancient wisdom says dreams are journeys. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia speak of the dream time, a realm that is as real as waking life, where ancestors still walk. The Greeks told of Morpheus, the god of dreams, who could carry souls between worlds. Shamans across the Americas use lucid dreaming as a tool to heal, to see, to travel. What if dreams are not mere illusions, but rehearsals for the crossing of dimensions? What if forgotten civilizations learn to dream awake, to turn the fragile doorway of sleep into a bridge, walking freely between realms? The evidence of absent skeptics will say, if civilizations crossed into other dimensions, where is the proof? But perhaps the very absence of proof is the proof. If they stepped fully across, leaving little behind but whispers, then what more would we expect? A shadow on the wall, a doorway carved in stone, a myth that refuses to die. These may be all that remains when a people does not collapse, but transitions. Think of it like radio waves. If you are not tuned to the right frequency, the music is still there, but you cannot hear it. In the same way, entire civilizations may still exist, humming on a frequency just beyond our reach, invisible, but not gone. The call across the veil, and sometimes they call to us, in visions, in stories, that appear across cultures, unconnected by time or distance, yet eerily similar. Civilizations of shining cities, beings of light, voices from the mists. Why do we, across the planet, dream of the same kinds of hidden worlds? Perhaps because they are real, perhaps because the veil is thinner than we believe, and every so often it lets a whisper through. The veil between us. If forgotten civilizations did not vanish but stepped across dimensions, then they are not gone. They are close, so close that their echoes brush against us in myths, in dreams, in ruins that refuse to stay silent. They may watch us now, as we once watched them. Perhaps they wait for us to learn what they knew. That reality is not a single path, but a tapestry of infinite threads. The ancients spoke of veils, and science now speaks of multiverses. Different languages, same truth. Reality is layered. And in those layers, civilizations may rise and fall in worlds parallel to our own. The question is not whether they exist. The question is whether we are ready to see them, to listen, to cross, and to accept that the story of humanity is not confined to one Earth, one history, or one dimension. For across the veil, empires may still live. And if we quiet ourselves enough, if we dare to listen, we may yet hear their whispers. Opening, hook. Every empire leaves behind ruins. But some leave behind something greater, knowledge. And when civilizations fall, that knowledge must be hidden, guarded by those who understand that truth can be both dangerous and sacred. Who are these guardians? Are they priests and scribes, carefully copying ancient texts? Are they secret brotherhoods sworn to silence until the world is ready? Or are they something more, beings not entirely human, carrying wisdom from age to age, dimension to dimension? When we follow the trail of myths, we find them everywhere. The keepers, the watchers, the guardians of hidden knowledge, whispers of the priesthoods. In ancient Egypt, the priests of Heliopolis claimed to possess teachings far older than the pyramids. They spoke of Zep-Tepi, the first time, when gods walked among men and laid the foundations of civilization. To the outside world, they performed rituals, guided pharaohs, built temples. But behind the scenes, they were custodians of secrets, astronomy, mathematics, sacred geometry, knowledge that seemed to arrive fully formed, as though inherited rather than discovered. In Mesopotamia, the scribes preserved stories of the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens to give humanity laws and order. In India, Brahmin priests guarded the Vedas, texts so ancient their origins blur into myth. In Mesoamerica, the Maya priesthood tracked the cycles of stars and time with uncanny precision, keeping alive the memory of earlier worlds. Across every land, priests are more than religious figures. They are librarians of forgotten ages, guardians of wisdom too vast to belong only to their time. The secret brotherhoods, as centuries passed and empires collapsed, knowledge did not disappear. It went underground. Mystery schools, secret brotherhoods, and hidden societies rose to protect fragments of ancient truth. The Pythagoreans in Greece guarded the mathematics of harmony and proportion, teaching only to initiates deemed worthy. The Hermeticists of Alexandria studied the as above, so below principle, blending Egyptian, Greek, and Babylonian wisdom. In the Middle Ages, whispers of the Templars, the Rosicrucians, and later the Freemasons all carried rumors of hidden knowledge passed through the ages. Were these groups inventing wisdom, or were they preserving it? If so, what was the source? Could it have been fragments of teachings left by forgotten empires, handed down in secrecy so they would survive even when the world was not ready to remember? The keepers beyond time. But there are other stories. Stories not of priests or brotherhoods, but of beings who themselves are guardians. The shining ones of Celtic lore. The 7 sages of Mesopotamia, said to have risen from the sea to teach humanity the arts of civilization. The serpent kings of Mesoamerica, half human, half divine, who brought wisdom and then vanished. Are these simply myths? Or are they memories of real entities who step in during each cycle of humanity, ensuring that knowledge never fully dies, that the flame of wisdom is always passed on? The fire that must be hidden. Knowledge is power, and power can both create and destroy. The ancients understood this. They knew that wisdom, whether of the stars, of energy, or of the mind, could elevate humanity, or ruin it. That is why, in nearly every tradition, sacred knowledge is spoken of as fire. Prometheus in Greek myth stole fire from the gods to give to mankind, and was punished for it. In the Vedic texts, Agni, the fire god, is the carrier of wisdom, connecting mortals to the divine. Among the Mayans, fire was not just warmth, but the living flame of knowledge, carried from one world into the next. To guard knowledge was not simply to protect it from being lost, it was to protect it from being misused. Perhaps that is why so much wisdom was encoded in symbols, myths, and rituals. Only those initiated, only those with patience and humility could unlock its true meaning. Knowledge carved in stone guardians of wisdom did not always write in books. Books burn, scrolls decay. Stone, however, endures. Why else would the ancients pour such immense effort into carving stories into temples, monuments, and megaliths? Why align pyramids with the stars, unless they were messages not just to their own people but to us, the distant descendants who would one day stumble upon them? Consider the Sphinx, worn with water erosion that suggests it is far older than we think. Or the Nazca lines of Peru, massive geoglyphs visible only from the sky, as though meant for someone watching from above. Or the Dogon tribe of Mali, who somehow knew of Sirius's invisible companion star long before modern telescopes. Are these coincidences? Or are they breadcrumbs left by guardians, markers placed carefully so that even if entire libraries burned, fragments of truth would survive? Hidden. Libraries of the world whispers persist of hidden vaults, sealed chambers, and lost libraries where forgotten knowledge waits. The fabled Library of Alexandria, burned by conquest, may have been only one branch of a greater network of wisdom. Legends say the Maya hid codices deep in the jungles, away from invading conquerors. In Egypt, rumors of a hall of records beneath the Sphinx speak of texts and artifacts from an age before history. In Tibet, it is said that monks guard entire books of star knowledge in monasteries inaccessible to outsiders. Why does this legend repeat across continents? Because perhaps it is true. Perhaps the guardians, knowing collapse would come, placed their treasures where only the patient and the worthy would one day find them. The silent teachers. There are stories of teachers who appear suddenly in moments of need. They come to kings, to prophets, to seekers, sharing fragments of wisdom, then vanishing without a trace. Moses in the desert, receiving the tablets of law. The mysterious Melchizedek, king and priest, who blesses Abraham with bread and wine, then disappears from the story of history. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, who taught the Toltecs and then promised to return. These figures feel less like mortals and more like guardians, beings who step forward when the world teeters on the edge of forgetting, reminding humanity of what it once knew. Symbols as keys. If you want to hide something for thousands of years, you don't lock it in a chest. You hide it in plain sight, in stories, in symbols, in rituals so common that no conqueror would think to destroy them. Look closely at the cross, the circle, the spiral, the serpent, the tree. These symbols appear in every culture. The serpent in particular is everywhere, in Eden, in India, in Mesoamerica. Sometimes it is feared, sometimes it is revered, but it always carries the weight of wisdom. Why? Because symbols are keys. They can pass through language barriers, survive translation, survive conquest. A guardian could encode entire cosmologies in a single symbol, knowing that future generations would feel its resonance even if they could not fully decode it. The tree of life, the Ouroboros, the sacred geometry of mandalas, all are whispers, left behind by those who understood that truth must be hidden in layers, waiting for those ready to peel them back. Guardians in the shadows of history. Every so often, a figure emerges from the shadows of history, carrying ideas that seem too advanced, too sudden, too luminous for their time. Take Pythagoras. He did not just invent mathematics. He spoke of the music of the spheres, the harmony of the cosmos, as though he had remembered rather than discovered. Take Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary sage said to have written texts that blended divine and human wisdom, teachings so profound that they influenced alchemy, magic, and even modern science. Or take Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh of Egypt, who suddenly declared a vision of one divine source, a radical departure from the many gods of his people. Were these geniuses? Or were they guardians, or messengers of guardians, bringing back fragments of knowledge at the right moment, in the right place, to keep the flame alive? The burden of guardianship, to be a guardian, is not a privilege. It is a burden. Imagine holding knowledge that could change the world, but also destroy it. Imagine living in a society that is not ready, surrounded by people who would misuse or misunderstand what you guard. The guardians are not only protectors of wisdom, they are protectors of timing. Too soon, and knowledge becomes chaos. Too late, and it is lost forever. Their task is to hold the flame, to pass it only when the world is ready to receive it. Perhaps this is why so many guardians are depicted as exiles, wanderers, outsiders. They do not belong fully to their age. They belong to all ages. Echoes in us, and maybe the guardians are not just figures of history. Maybe they are within us. Each time someone feels a sudden inspiration, a vision, a sense of déjà vu while studying an ancient text or walking among ruins. Perhaps that is the guardianship. Awakening. Knowledge does not only live in libraries. It lives in memory, in intuition, in the strange way that truth feels familiar even when we hear it for the first time. We may all carry fragments of the guardians within us, the inheritance of forgotten civilizations waiting to be remembered. The eternal flame civilizations may rise and fall, but wisdom is not so easily destroyed. It flickers like a flame, sometimes dim, sometimes bright, but never fully extinguished. And always there are guardians. They are priests and scribes, carving truth into stone. They are brotherhoods and mystics, passing whispers through ritual and symbol. They are wandering teachers who appear in the nick of time. And they may be something more, timeless beings, shining through the cracks of history, reminding us of what we once knew. The guardians are not here to give us answers. They are here to make sure the questions survive, to plant seeds in myths, in symbols, in ruins, so that when humanity is ready, the answers can grow again. Perhaps we are at such a moment now. Perhaps the guardians watch, waiting to see if we are ready to inherit what was hidden. The question is not whether the guardians exist. The question is whether we will recognize their whispers when we hear them. For hidden knowledge is never truly lost. It only waits for the right eyes to see and the right hearts to understand. The fall of empires. Every empire believes it will last forever, but none do. The Sumerians who invented writing, the Egyptians who built monuments to eternity, the Mayans who tracked the stars across millennia. All believed their world was permanent, yet all fell. Why? War? Famine? Disease? Yes, but sometimes collapse comes from something deeper, something we cannot see. A turning of the wheel, a thickening of the veil, a silence falling between ages. It is easy to imagine collapse as fire and flood, as chaos in the streets. But more. Often collapse is quieter. It is forgetting. Knowledge slipping through cracks, libraries burning, languages dying. And one morning, people wake to find that the greatness of their ancestors is gone, leaving only whispers. The silence that follows when a civilization collapses, the silence that follows is heavy. Stones stand abandoned, temples fall to ruin, and the voices of the guardians grow faint, hidden once again until the next cycle begins. This silence is not empty. It is a pause, a reset. Like the breath between words, it prepares the world for the next story, the next rise. But in that silence, something else happens. We begin to forget not only what we knew, but that we ever knew it at all. And this is the greatest tragedy. Not the fall of cities, but the fall of memory. The erasure of time history is written by survivors, and survivors often do not understand what they have inherited. The Greeks looked at Egyptian monuments and thought them works of gods, not men. The Spanish saw the Maya calendar and dismissed it as superstition. We ourselves look at the pyramids, the Nazca lines, the megaliths of Baalbek, and struggle to explain how they were made. Each time the wheel turns, humanity rewrites its own story. The past becomes myth. Myth becomes fantasy. And we are left blind to the truth, that we are not the first, that we have walked this path before. The guardians in the shadows, when the silence falls, the guardians do not disappear. They retreat. They wait. They carry fragments of wisdom into monasteries, into hidden vaults, into symbols carved on temple walls. They know that collapse is not the end. It is the turning of the cycle. And so they whisper into myths, into dreams, into rituals past, down in secret. They become shadows, watchers, wanderers. Their role is not to prevent the fall, for the fall must come, but to ensure that something survives it. Perhaps this is why legends of hidden knowledge always speak of a time of revealing. The Mayans spoke of worlds destroyed and reborn. The Hindus spoke of yugas, great ages of light and darkness. The Hopi tell of cycles of creation, each ending in destruction, each preserved by a chosen few. The guardians endure the silence, so that when the next dawn comes, the flame can be lit again. The warnings of the past. What if the ruins we marvel at are not just remnants, but warnings? A stone circle aligned with the stars may not only mark time, it may mark the last time. A pyramid may not only be a tomb, it may be a message across ages. We were here. We knew. Do not forget. When we see the same myths repeat across the globe, floods, fires, lost lands, we should not dismiss them as coincidence. They may be memories of the last collapse, carried forward by those who refuse to let us forget entirely. But like faint echoes, the warnings grow weaker each time. And perhaps now, in our age of progress and pride, we hear them least of all. The fragility of our age, we believe we are untouchable. We carry technology in our pockets that would look like magic to our ancestors. We map the stars with telescopes, split atoms, send signals across the planet in an instant. But what if all of it is just as fragile as theirs? A solar storm, a shift in climate, a war that burns too brightly, a silence that descends without warning. Would we be remembered as gods? Or would our skyscrapers crumble like temples, our satellites fall like stones, our knowledge vanish like smoke? And in some distant future, would new civilizations walk among our ruins asking who we were, inventing myths about our powers, never truly knowing? The echo of forgotten voices. Sometimes, in quiet moments, we can almost hear them, not with our ears, but with something deeper. The whispers of civilizations that came before us, urging us to remember. They speak through myths that refuse to die, through symbols that feel familiar even when we cannot explain why, through ruins that draw us closer as if the stones themselves are alive. It is not imagination. It is memory. Memory that belongs not just to one people, but to humanity itself. The guardians may hold the keys, but the echoes live within us all, the cycles of time. We like to imagine history as a straight line, marching forward forever. But the ancients told a different story. History is a circle. The Mayans spoke of suns, worlds that rose and fell, one after another. The Hindus spoke of yugas, golden ages of light, followed by dark ages of forgetting. The Greeks spoke of ages of gold, silver, bronze, and iron. Each cycle rises to greatness, then collapses into silence. Each silence gives birth to a new dawn, and in each dawn, fragments of the old world are carried forward, seeds planted by guardians, waiting to bloom again. Where we stand now, and so we must ask, where are we in the cycle? Are we still climbing toward a golden peak? Or are we already descending, blinded by our pride, unaware that the silence is approaching once more? If forgotten civilizations walked this path before, then their fate may be our mirror. They reached heights we cannot explain. They vanished into myths we do not believe. And now we stand at the same precipice with the same choice, to listen to the whispers or to fall into forgetting. The choice before us. The story of forgotten civilizations is not just about the past. It is a mirror held up to us, a reminder that knowledge can be lost, that greatness can crumble, that silence always follows the song. But silence is not the end. It is a pause, waiting for the next verse. And now the question is whether we will write that verse with wisdom, or whether we will leave only ruins for others to puzzle over. The final whisper across dimensions, across ages, across the rise and fall of empires, the guardians have carried. One truth, nothing is truly forgotten. Every stone carved with care, every myth retold by the fire, every symbol that stirs something deep inside us. All of it is a message, waiting for the right eyes, the right ears, the right hearts. Perhaps you feel it now. That strange pull, that sense of recognition, as though you have heard this story before. Maybe you have. Maybe you lived it once, in another time, in another age. The end. That is a beginning. The whispers of forgotten empires are not here to frighten us. They are here to remind us. We are part of a greater story. A story that stretches across time, across dimensions, across the silence between ages. The choice is ours, to forget or to remember, to ignore the whispers or to listen, to repeat the mistakes of the past or to finally break the cycle. And so we end where we began, with echoes. Echoes of forgotten human empires. Echoes that refuse to die. Echoes that call us to remember who we truly are. The silence will come again. But so will the dawn. The question is, will we be ready?